Thanks for tuning in. I'm Joel Lamadon.
And I'm Ann Monroe.
Welcome to The Road to Better Teaching, the podcast where we share stories of professional growth from across the field of education. Dr. Monroe, you know what's really great is people that love to teach math. Do you know that?
I know that's your favorite type of person, I think, right?
Yeah, and then folks that also like to be leaders as well. So that's who we have here today. Cassandra Poulin. How you doing, Cassandra?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Great.
Very happy to be here.
Awesome. And so let's see where you're at you are a middle school math teacher who's now in Principal Corps. And what are you doing right now in Principal Corps?
So I'm basically in my year-long internship, so taking a break from teaching for the first time in my adult life. And this year I'm interning this semester at an elementary school as kind of a assistant principal role interning. And then next semester I'll be in a secondary role.
Fantastic. Like getting those kind of
hands-on experiences.
Yeah. And just completely different where you're like, hey, these are future middle schoolers. And then you're like, these are past middle schoolers when you maybe go to a high school environment.
Yeah.
Or is it guaranteed at a high school environment, or you think you?
No, they try not to put you at a school you've already been at and at the junior high. But I think they're going to put me back at the junior high. So I'll be right back.
So
brave soul.
Yeah. Give a little background on yourself. Like, how did you come to be a middle school math teacher, and then and then maybe a little something fun, a little something outside of education, so we get to know you a little bit better.
So I grew up always loving math and reading and English. I'm also certified to teach ELA. Love a good book. And in college, kind of wasn't sure what I wanted to do, big time tutor. And I had an advisor that said, you'd be a great math teacher. And so kind of went with that as we'll see how it goes. I loved tutoring and I loved math. So I wasn't really sure what that would look like, but I said, let's do it. I'm also from New Hampshire. So this was at Southern New Hampshire University, way up north. And I graduated college up there and moved with my family, with my mom, down here to Mississippi. And instantly got a job at a middle school, which I swore to my professors I'd never teach middle school. That was like a running joke. Yeah. They were like, you have that kind of quirky personality for middle school. And I said, never. I want to teach calculus and trigonometry. But I ended up in 7th and 8th grade math. Fell in love with the age group more than I ever thought I would. Fantastic fun with those kids. I always tell people when they say, oh, that's the worst of both worlds. I said, no, it's the best of both worlds because they're still young enough where you can have fun with them, but they're old enough to where you can have some really meaningful conversations with them. So found my kind of jam there.
And you can influence their relationship with math too.
100%.
Dr. Monroe and I are very big on that. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of where that's a big topic of conversation I'm thinking for today.
Okay. Ooh,
my journey.
Oh, good.
Sneak preview. Here we go.
Yes. Can't wait to hear.
Yeah.
So I've been teaching for 8 years on the Gulf Coast in Mississippi. Love teaching middle school, and I love math curriculum, and I love teaching strategies, and I love building relationships with students. And I've just found a lot of people really enjoy my ideas. I'm an ideas heavy person. I have big ideas. And I think coming from New Hampshire, that's a very project based, very forward thinking. The high school I student taught at was a kind of alternative high school. It was all CTE based. Every kid was in a CTE, and it was self-paced curriculum. So
career and technical education, just for those out there. Yeah.
Yes. And it was kids in their non-CTE classes, they would work through their other gen ed classes at their own pace. And so you'd have kids finish Algebra 1 in 2 months and then move on the very next day to geometry. And so that was just cool seeing all the different ways that they kind of catered to kids up there. And so moving down to Mississippi, totally different world, but I still had all these big ideas of projects I wanted to do and real world applications. And so it's been a transition down here. But I still have all those big ideas. And I think a lot of teachers have appreciated that I'm willing to do a lot of the planning behind a project. So that's where I've thought maybe leadership, maybe helping teachers help kids.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of where I decided to apply for Principal Corps, got in, and I'm heavy on the instructional leadership side. I know there's a lot more to leadership than that, but that's kind of my big focus is instructional leadership.
Right. It's what you enjoy doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
a fun fact, I know you mentioned a fun fact in
Yeah.
college, I took a little caveat from regular courses and I went and did a summer at UCLA for architecture because I was really obsessed with tiny houses. This is when tiny houses became like a big thing. And I was like, I want to live in one. I'm very
That's awesome.
and I was like, I want to build them. I want to design them. I want to teach. This was my dream and still is a potential future pet project, but I want to have kids in high schools build and design tiny houses and then donate them to homeless communities to get people out of a transition way out of homelessness. And that's been done now since then. This was like 10 years ago. That's been done. And so that little architecture side, I've been able to work into my math classroom quite a bit.
That's amazing. A great connection there. It'd be wonderful to have students working on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'd like a little shed in the back of my yard, like just.
You need a new recording studio.
That's
Joel.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
There
you go.
My recording closet in the back of our garage. I've remodeled it a few times now, but still it needs.
It's still a closet.
Still a closet. Yeah. All right. So we like to do a little interview countdown where we kind of walk through some things and we might have touched on some things, but that's okay. We can, highlight in some, but I'm wondering if you would start by naming 3 teachers who have shaped you as a person.
Yeah. There's so many, but I think one that comes to mind from high school was Rob Hamill, my English teacher. He was kind of a legend for being the hardest teacher in the school. So when we got to him for 11th and 12th grade English, it was tough. It was the highest standards I think I've ever been held to academically in terms of writing and thinking and reading. And he did a lot of projects. So I just remember like Frankenstein we read, and then the concept of Frankenstein, we did a project of creating the best version of something. And I remember I chose in all my teenage angst, like the best love song ever. And so it took the chorus from this song and the guitar from this song and the vocals from this song. And he ended up keeping that project to like show as a model for future years. But I just remember him. I was curious, how is he able to get us to learn so much? I mean, we were so over-prepared for college, that college felt too easy. And we were so over-prepared, but at the same time, like had the most fun learning experiences and most meaningful discussions in class. I just think he kind of was an inspiration to me where I was like, I don't know how he did it, but I hope I can get there one day. He was
great.
That's probably going to be a topic of conversation at lunch today. Is like the Frankenstein in a love song.
That was so good.
The monster love song.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
and I wish I remember what other people did, but like I think one kid did like a car. He was really into like vehicles, so like the best classic car, and it was cool for us because we got to pick something we were passionate about.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
and tied in with the literature we were reading.
Yeah.
And then the other 2 people, I actually work with both of them in my current school district. They're my 2 assistant principals, and I'm not saying this just to gas them up a little bit. They really are.
Doesn't hurt.
It's like my work mom and my work dad, I tell them. And so they are polar opposite people, and I think are both perfect at what they do in leadership and balance each other out so well. So Gina Brunn, she is the most organized, detail-oriented, cool, calm, collected, like planner of an organization that I've ever seen before. She has thought everything through, and her motto is I'm going to do all the front loading to make things easier for teachers because I want teachers focused on teaching. I don't want them bogged down with anything else. So, I mean, she pre-makes spreadsheets for the entire school, which is like 1,200 kids for our weekly, instead of like, I know at a lot of schools, that's something that would be put on teachers, like teachers do your homeroom. No, she does the whole school and just organizes it for like PBIS and state testing. It's just every year I'm blown away. She finds a new way to take something off of our plate. And I'm just like, how do you do this? And then on the other end of the spectrum, Jack Russell, and he would say, like the dog, yes, Jack Russell. He's the most people person I've ever met in my life. When I think of servant leadership, the type of guy that he'll never say no to anything you need from him. You'll walk down the hallway and just be like, he could have 1,000 things on his plate and you would never know. And you can stop and be like, hey, I need a ladder. Absolutely. I'll grab it right now. And it's just, it almost feels like they shield these two administrators are so effective at what they do that they shield teachers from like any inconvenience that could be getting in the way of us focusing on teaching. And now that I've entered into the leadership side, they've started to let me see a little bit of the behind the scenes. And I have even more of an appreciation for how well they kind of balance the people side of things and the organizational side of things to come together and make it like seamless for the teachers.
I love hearing that about school administrators playing a role in supporting the second most important people in the building, which are the teachers.
Yeah.
That's amazing because that's, they know where the work's being done. They know that the most important people in the building, the students, rely on those second most important people the most. And I love to hear that about school administrators. That's fantastic.
They're also both former math teachers. And
that's right.
I know, great
Another
people.
great math people.
Great
That's
people.
right.
And to show you just a little bit of their hearts, like we call him Coach Russell, but he will call, if there's students that are maybe struggling behaviorally or academically in a class, he will pull them into his office and do math with them in his office and help them and tutor them in math. And I just feel like how above and beyond of somebody to, tackle maybe discipline as we would see it in a way that's more restorative and reparative and kind of tackling. Because a lot of kids, when they aren't sure what to do academically, those inner feelings can turn into what teachers perceive as behavioral problems. And so for him to kind of set the tone for like, we're going to give this student the knowledge they need to be successful and then deal with the other side is beautiful.
The behavior will come as the need is met.
Yes.
Well, I was going to ask you to cook a little bit more on that, Dr. Monroe, because that's going into like talking about, shame and shame pathway, like leading to misbehave. So like, hey, why don't we like deal with probably the root cause where, hey,
That's
I'm
right.
not feeling like I'm understanding this stuff. So I'm going to act out in some unhealthy ways because I don't want to show this that I'm feeling shame about my knowledge or about math. I don't know.
Yeah, that frustration and that hot spotlight, like we like to say, and students are feeling that and feeling underprepared and frustrated. They will, one of the pathways of shame is lashing out, any avoidance. So maybe like, class clown type behavior, withdrawing from discussions, withdrawing from the classroom, not doing the work. These are all things that can lead to with teachers perceiving as bad behavior. Certainly not behavior we want to see, that we want happening, but how are we meeting the need? What's
the underlying
what's the underlying thing,
Yeah.
and what does the student need from us in order to display better behaviors, more conducive to the learning environment? And they just need something. I love that principle, filling that need. That's amazing.
Yeah. They're great.
And you also, I kind of figured maybe the math thing, you had me at spreadsheets. I was like, spreadsheets.
Yeah.
That sounds like math.
Yes.
All right. 2 reasons or events that led you to become a teacher. What would those be?
I think a big theme, because I didn't grow up knowing I wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
I had a lot of different other ideas. Teaching was not one of them. I just knew my whole life I enjoyed school. Like I enjoyed learning. I enjoyed not getting something and then putting in a lot of hard work and then it clicking for myself.
Oh, yeah.
And then I want to say I started tutoring in middle school. And so I've always been somebody who enjoyed hearing someone say they don't know how to do it or they can't do it or they're just like, no, I don't get it. And then being able, because I will push to find a way. Because if the first way I explained it doesn't work, we can find a second way and a third way. And I loved that kind of challenge of like, ooh, I'm gonna find a way that makes sense for you. So that's really all I knew going in. I wasn't really sure if teaching, like managing a bunch of kids at once, was going to work for me. And it definitely took a few years to get the management piece down for sure. But when I think of tutoring, when I really decided I wanted to be a teacher was actually like year 3 into teaching. That's when I was like, okay, I think I've got the management piece down. And I started tutoring kids from all across the school, kids from other classes. And one thing I noticed from hearing things, you kind of sometimes you hear things across classrooms, and also things that kids would tell me in tutoring and show me, was they did not believe in themselves at all. And that belief was reinforced in the classroom in ways that I don't even know that adults were like intentionally doing, but things from hearing adults say like, "Ugh, I'm not a math person," like their parents maybe saying that, or hearing other content teachers say like, "Oh, I don't understand any of that math stuff," to even a kid asking a question in class and the response being, "You should know that, I already went over it in the notes." Things like that, that just, I think, in subtle ways make kids think like they're just not cut out for this. And then I work with them and I'm able to get them to mastery. I was like, oh, I like this. I really like this idea of helping kids. And then I realized, like in my classroom, I'm only able to really have that effect on the 150 kids that I see throughout a day with my periods or blocks. And I got frustrated when I would have kids from other teachers come to me for tutoring and then be like, "Do not make me go back to that class. Like, I don't want to go back there." And I just realized how different, even though we're in the same school with the same curriculum, not every teacher is explaining it the same way. Not every teacher builds relationships with students the same way. And not to at all say that I am like a superior teacher, but I do think that some teachers believe in students and make their belief in students more apparent than maybe other teachers. And I just was like, if I could change one thing in this school, it would be how we're talking to kids. It would be the way we are talking to kids about who they are as people, because a lot of kids develop a sense of self in these classrooms. I did. I feel like I developed a lot of my sense of my capabilities and my strengths and what was possible for me in my classrooms by doing hard things alongside teachers that believed in me. And I was like, I want that to be the norm in a school. And so that was kind of one thing that led me to like maybe educational leadership, maybe math coaching, maybe some type of role where we could have conversations with teachers about the way we are talking to kids. And then the other big thing was I came from New Hampshire, which had I was at a very small school with a lot of clubs. I was in probably 10 clubs myself. And I feel like that was another big thing that I felt like helped me develop as a person, my leadership skills, my people skills, social skills, kind of my values too. I know a big club I was in was youth leadership through adventure, which was kind of a leadership program where we were like anti-drug use, anti-alcohol, anti-bullying, and how are we going to be leaders and standing for those causes. And then I came to Mississippi and I was like, we don't have a math team, let alone a leadership team, let alone weekend conferences and things like that. I just felt like there was such a lack of extracurricular activities at the school I was at. And so I started a math team. I did a couple other little projects. And that was another thing that I was like, I think every kid should be involved in something. I really think whatever that looks like for them. And at the school I'm at now, they've done a really good job of, I think in the 3 years I've been there, doubling the amount of clubs and after school activities we're offering kids. We have drone clubs after school. We have, what's the like video game competitions that the high school kids do?
Oh, like the esports?
Oh, esports.
Yes, we have, I want to say, an award-winning esports team.
That's great.
We have flag football for girls that is starting.
Sweet.
So it's just, I just think there's a lot of work to be done in that area as well. And that takes adults that are willing to put in the time to plan those things and find adults that are willing. It's after school hours type of stuff. And I have nothing but time to make this happen for kids. So.
Yeah. One thing I want to go back to that you said, Cassandra, that I think's interesting, and it echoes what we heard from Brandy De La Cruz a couple of episodes ago, the current Tennessee Teacher of the Year, is this idea that you're in year 3, and that's really when you settled into, hey, I've got the management under control now. I feel good. I want to do this. But it took time in the classroom for you to feel that way. And Brandy talked about that as well.
Yeah.
She said, I just want to tell these new teachers, hang in there.
Yeah.
Because it gets better. Like it just gets better. And the rewards really happen after, those first few years. And so I think that's interesting because it just echoes what Brandy was saying, hang in there. And, it gets better, you get better, and then you can
Yeah.
start doing, enjoying it more and doing some of the things you really want to do.
I think if you as a person have two prerequisites, one being you love children, like you truly just want kids to succeed and be happy and healthy, and you have a growth mindset, I think you're going to be fine. It may take a year or two or three, but I think if you're the type of person that wants to grow and you're constantly thinking, how can I improve my practices? How can I be there better for students? You'll eventually find answers. You'll seek out the right people and seek out the right development, and you'll get there, as long as you love kids and you want to grow.
I wonder too, like, there's all this talk about recruitment and retention, and you mentioned this idea about tutoring. Like, seems like when someone's like, oh man, we really need teachers. And like, what are we doing to offer kids opportunities to dip their toes into like, this level of teaching that, is entry level, right? But to get those sort of like aha moments and to see like kids understand, or even like, even helping them learn how to best tutor, not just like, hey, here's how you write down the answer, like, or regurgitate something, but like, hey, do you understand this? And like getting it, it's like, I don't know, one of those, just, you got me thinking about that too. But
when I was in high school, we had training. The people that signed up to be tutors, I don't know if we necessarily signed up or were like nominated by our teachers. Like we think this kid would be a good tutor. We went through a training with my guidance counselor at the time, who talked to us about, over the course of a couple weeks, like how to help someone when they're struggling, because that wasn't necessarily a skill we all had by 7th or 8th grade. I think peer tutoring, I think, would be an avenue maybe to get there.
yeah, I just like, just even negotiating like the difference between this person's lacking conceptual understanding versus like, no, they're not keeping track of their work, and so like they're missing a negative, they're missing whatever from a math perspective. Anyway, keep going down the math path. Here we go. All right, so we've named 3 teachers or educational leaders who've shaped you as a person. We've recalled 2 reasons or events that led you to become an educational leader. All right, now let's name one mile marker on your journey of growing as an educator. So what moment would you pick to represent your mile marker?
Crazy enough, I'm going to pick a PD that I did. And I feel like most people are like, PD's never useful. But the Intel Math PD that I did 2 years ago was a truly transformative moment. It was it was once a month for a Friday and Saturday. So Friday we had a sub in our classroom. And it was all day Friday and all day Saturday at district office. And it was teachers K through 8. And it's a training that Intel, like the computer company, they put on this fabulous training in an effort to get better quality teachers, to in an effort get better students that want to one day be math, like in STEM related fields, which I think
that they could hire. Yeah.
Yes.
Build some chips. Yeah.
So the training that I did at Intel Math PD, I went into it thinking it was going to be a curriculum based, and it is. It goes through the curriculum all the way from adding all the way up to functions. And I thought, okay, this is going to give me maybe a better understanding of the why behind a lot of things, which it definitely did. But the way this training is ran completely changed my perception of how I was going to run my classroom. So I had always had, like I said, I had these big ideas of what I wanted my classroom to be. I had very progressive ideas. I wanted inquiry-based learning and discovery-based learning, and I wanted math dialogue. And so over the years, I tried to make these ideas come alive. And again, this is what you do as a new teacher. You try things and you tweak as you go, and some fail and some don't. So like I did a tiny house project one year because I was like, I want collaboration. I want them applying to real world operations. And I mean, it went fabulously, but it didn't necessarily have the day-to-day impact. That project was great, but it didn't change my day-to-day instruction in terms of like, the curriculum. So I'm like, okay, so how can I maybe get that into my day-to-day? I started using sentence stems and sentence starters for grouping so that kids could have, because I noticed like they didn't necessarily know how to have dialogue with each other. Yeah. Okay, cool. We had conversations about math vocab and tried all these things, but I never really found something that helped me make the classroom come alive on the student's end. Because I was doing great talking. They were doing great listening, but I wanted it to be more conversational. I wanted them to have more dialogue. And so I go to this Intel Math PD. We get in there and you kind of sit in a pair and you open up this workbook and the guy leading the training goes, okay, I'm going to have you independently try problems 1 through 4, any way you want, and independently, and then we'll come together in a couple minutes. So we're all like, okay. So we're working them out, and it's problems that did not have clear-cut answers. It was not just like, what is 2 + 9? It was with visuals and models and getting you to really think about the way we write things. And so I, as a secondary math person, was kind of like, oh, interesting. Okay. And so then after we finished that, he's like, all right, now talk with your partner. And the whole time he's walking the room, just kind of peeking over your shoulder, looking at what you're writing. And then we talk with our partner and realize we attacked these tasks, I'd call them, in totally different ways, with different models and different understandings. And most of the time would all come to the same answer, but sometimes not. And sometimes that would be great conversation. And then he'd say, okay, let's come back together. I want Cassandra, Rebecca, and Jack. You 3 are going to come up and just show the class what you did and explain your work. And so we'd bring our book up under a document camera, which I'd never even heard of before. And we'd put it under there and just kind of explain to the class what they were seeing. Okay, so I started here and I drew this picture and then I saw this word and I did that. And I was like, this is what I want my classroom to look like every day. These conversations, the aha moments we would have, every 10 minutes. Just like, I never thought you could teach addition like that. I never thought if I have an 8th grade student struggling with multiplication that I could do an array. I'd never heard of an array before. I'd never heard of a bar model. And now, as a 7th and 8th grade, that's how I teach percents, is with bar models as one strategy. So it opened up this new idea of sharing out, of having kids work. And it's such a strategy. I'm sure I was taught in college, think, pair, share, but I'd never seen it done, and I'd never done it. So it wasn't until this training that I was like, okay, I can get kids talking, and I can celebrate all the different ways they attack a problem with this kind of think, pair, share, exploratory model.
What I love listening to this is this idea, first of all, that quality professional development makes a difference for teachers. And then 2, that as a teacher, you still want and need professional development. It can change your teaching.
Yes.
All of your learning about teaching doesn't happen in undergraduate or, traditional route programs if you're a traditional route teacher, and certainly doesn't happen in short alternate route programs. In terms of pedagogy and instructional, those types of things. But the importance of great professional development for practicing teachers that's meaningful to them, that really can change what their classroom looks like, and keep things fresh, keep things new. And, I think that's really, really something important for leaders to understand.
Yeah.
And what is it that makes something quality? Bringing outside, sometimes it's an outside perspective. What are the teachers needing? What do they want? What do they want?
I think what was cool about this too is like, it was you volunteered to do it. Like this was something it was open to any teacher in the district. And it happens every year. Every year there's a cycle of teachers. There's like cohorts. Like I was Intel cohort 9, and I want to say they're on like 10 now or 12. And so like every year there's new teachers that get trained in this model, which I think that's also a cool way to do it when you find something that works, like continuing to do it, because you're going to get new teachers that come in. We're having that conversation right now at like the elementary level, this thing called Project Read, a way to teach phonics and stuff that some of the older teachers were trained on, but they didn't continue the training. So newer teachers are coming in without those skills. And it was an extensive training. Another thing too, I think on the leadership side with the PD, but also on the teacher side, I think a huge misconception I had that I'm lucky I let go of, because I think it would have led me to burnout. I had this fantasy that people told me was going to happen. I was going to hit a year where I could finally go on autopilot. I'd have all my lessons planned. I'd have all my activities figured out. I would have all my classroom management figured out, and I'd be able to, it would finally be, I wouldn't have to try so hard. I wouldn't have to find new strategies. I wouldn't have to do so much research. And I think I hit year 5 when I realized I have it all and I still am finding new and great things every day. I think year 5 was the year I found GimKit. And I was like, this completely changed the way I taught. And it's like every year I found something additional. So I think like I would tell a young teacher, if you have that expectation, that almost gives me like fixed mindset vibes that you're expecting to get to a place where you don't have to continue learning. I feel like being a teacher is being a forever student. Like you're constantly learning new strategies to connect with kids, behavior, content, teaching strategies, technology. So I would say like that's a big piece too.
Yeah, and the kids are constantly changing. So if your kids are constantly changing, you must to keep up with that just on a basic level. But also, like you're saying, there's so many new things.
Yes.
And that love of learning is kind of an essential element for someone who's teaching others to do the same.
Yeah. Most definitely.
So if you were asked to select, and we could talk about an artifact that would represent this moment, kind of like your souvenir of the moment, what would be something you could point to that would fill that role?
Probably the group presentations I have my students do that I record, and they think I'm going to like post them on Facebook, but I don't. Just for me to go back and watch. But yeah, I started doing presentations where kids would get up, they'd work with the group for a couple days on a particular problem, a pretty challenging problem for that task. And then they would get a rubric. We'd go through what the expectations are, not just on solving and showing your work, and multiple ways of arriving at an answer and checking our solution, but also just in like good presentation strategy. We talk about that too. And these are middle school kids, so they're nervous. We got to set the tone for like, of course, like safe space, absolutely here to just support each other. But yeah, they'd get up in front of the class and I'd record them doing their presentation, and just the kind of look of like, I did it after, like I did that. And whether I stumbled on a word or I made a mistake and I had to erase it, just this, like, I can do something I didn't think I could do. I don't think I would have done that without the intel, like dove into that.
And I love this idea of the product that is produced from your the student product is your artifact. From this, you grew, and the thing you want to shine light on as your artifact, your souvenir, is the student work, which I like that thinking about
I
our
really
artifact.
like that.
That's really great.
And like, I could take the Intel workbook, but that's just me working through problems with my colleagues. I think like the point of any PD is how is it going to trickle down to our students?
Yeah. What's the result? What's the great result? And the other thing that, thinking about these projects, you've mentioned project-based and you mentioned these presentations, and that kids, they were nervous, especially anybody, I think, but middle schoolers, struggling with, who are they and who are they to their peers, and, settling on that whole struggle. Learning about it's okay to get up. I can get up. I can be successful. I can learn. And when you do a project, when you do presentations, all of these other skills that are sharpened, all of these other things that can be practiced, all of these new skills that can be taught, just by putting it in the context, your content, your math content in the context of a project, opens it up to other skill development that may have never been a part of the math lesson.
Yes, I think definitely as someone that has a love of ELA, reading and writing, and I think those are so fundamental to me. Reading, writing, and math are our language. Like I tell my kids, math is a language. Reading and writing and talking are ways of communicating language. So it's all just about how we talk to each other, whether it's with math, whether it's with writing, whether it's with spoken word. Like we're all just trying to connect. And if we can't do that effectively, people are going to misunderstand us. And so same thing with math problems. Like you didn't necessarily do it wrong, but I just don't understand it. And the whole point of you doing this math problem is to help me understand what you're thinking. And so I like to tie as much. I had them write a paper one time, and that was a conversation. They tried to push back. They're like, this is math class. We're writing a paper. We're going to write a paper. But they bought in. And I think they saw like, oh, these are not separate subjects. It's just reading, writing, communicating.
communication is life.
Yes. Without it, I mean, we're nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it says a lot too. And I'm just going to underline what Dr. Monroe already said with the fact that you chose something for kids, like as an educational leader going forward, to say like, yeah, we want to support your growth, but like be thinking about how that growth is going to lead to what you do with students and how the students can grow. That's a beautiful thing. And that's your evidence, right? That was your evidence.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm doing these presentations this way. I've enacted what I learned. So, so kind of talked about how this moment is important to you and your growth as an educator. Anything else that you wanted to highlight from that? Because I feel like we've captured that, but just anything else that on top of mind? Good
Nope.
there?
I think we're good.
So why is this moment not, we talk about, hey, it's important to you and your development, but then also too, why is it important to the field? So we like to point to standards a little bit here. And so thinking about, we're looking at the National Educational Leadership Preparation Standards, the NELP standards, for those in the know. What of those like stuck out to you as aligning with this moment of professional growth?
Probably building professional capacity, standard 7, which I mean, I've had in a lot of other ways in this internship, it's a realization I've had ongoing for years, but just like, you can't do any of this alone. Everything we do is going to come from good conversation. And so this was one big example I found of like, as someone who tended to kind of be a recluse and like do my math problems by myself and think like I can get to the answer, I learned so much from these teachers who were all younger grade levels than me. A lot of them openly were very uncomfortable with math, yet they're teaching me something about how to approach math problems. Like, I'm learning from them. It was humbling, and it was like, wow, we are so much better as a collective group than I would have been by myself. And I was able to take things away from their first grade and third grade and fifth grade teaching styles and bring it back into my middle school classroom and help some of my students find other ways to learn there. So I just think building professional capacity in that kind of like teacher to teacher, not necessarily top down, but like us working together and having conversations, not locking yourself in your room during your planning period, but putting yourself out there and going to talk to the people on your team, people on other teams, admin, like whoever, to just kind of muster ideas together. That's been my, I think, biggest takeaway in that standard.
Nice. What's your current pocket size philosophy statement? So something, a phrase or something you carry with you that kind of helps you make decisions.
I just think buy-in. And I mean that like as an educator, go all in for the field, because if you're kind of half there and you're kind of like half invested to a certain point, you start setting like all of these boundaries. I know that's a big like buzzword, is like, let's set boundaries. I think the total opposite. I think go all in. I think there is a healthy way to live in a purpose. And I think when you are like, when there's something that ignites you, that you're excited to talk about, that you're passionate about, go all in. It's okay. Like, I know people that are like really into marathons and they're like a little obsessed with it, but it's cool. That's their thing. And like people that are really into cooking and they want to cook all day, every day. And it's like, I love that for you. Like, it's okay if you love teaching and you want to go all in and you want to do these awesome projects and go to this PD and spend your free time talking with, in your planning period. It's okay to talk about teaching, it's cool to go all in. So I just think that's a thing. I think it's been uncool for a few years now. And I think I want to bring back, like, go all in for your kids.
Absolutely. So we're kind of into our final aspect where we start throwing out some resources and things that we've thought about from your sharing. And one thing, I mean, I think you already talked about this idea of growth mindset and going all in, and like, because if you don't have a growth mindset, like, why would you keep developing? So like, the stuff
Carol
from
Dweck, sure.
Carol Dweck, obviously, but then even from the math side, we got Joe Boulder's book about mathematical mindsets, where she has Carol Dweck do an introduction. And then even thinking about the professional, like some of these, and maybe someone doesn't have the Intel, professional development, but there are things out there like Mississippi just put out a like a vertical alignment, or actually the Center for Math and Science Education here on the Mississippi campus has put together like a vertical alignment of standards, almost like trajectories for
Mm-hmm.
math. That's been, I think, helpful for people seeing like, hey, what are other grade levels doing, getting
Mm-hmm.
some exposure that way, or even just a shout out to like do what you did is like, hey, other talk to elementary teachers. That's actually when I would go to NCTM, the National Council of Teachers Mathematics Conference, I ended up going to a bunch of elementary sessions because like there were some very creative things that I could then use in my ninth grade math classroom that
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, versus like an elementary teacher, but like, yeah, we do that every day. Like, it's like this works. I don't know, anything out there, Dr. Monroe, that brought to mind for you?
Yeah, this idea about your, going all in, I love this. What are you passionate about? And if your passion is teaching, wow, what a great thing to be passionate about. When you go all in, think about what that does for the kids that you encounter. And so thinking about that, people are passionate about the marathons. People are passionate about the cooking. The late great Sir Ken Robinson, who has like some TED Talks that are kind of famous that I used to show in class. He has a book called The Element, and it's how finding your passion changes everything. And he tells stories of people who how they found what they were meant to do. They found what they're passionate about, and they went all in. And I think that's that's kind of an inspirational book about how do people, get connected to what their true purpose is. I think you used that phrase earlier about what's your purpose.
Yeah.
And that book by Ken Robinson, The Element, I think would be a great read. It's divided into little short, chapters where each one is about a person and their journey into finding that passion and what they do with it. So I would drop that as a resource.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm not aware of that one. Anything that you're brought to mind as through our conversation, Cassandra, that you want to share, put out in the world?
I do think there's a couple things that have helped me, shaped me a lot.
Yeah.
One, if you guys haven't heard of it, it's a book called Keeping the Wonder. There's a couple authors in there. It's a group of ladies, teachers that write a book about different small ways, kind of like little nuggets that we can do in our classroom to make today kind of wonder, like a little different. And it doesn't have to be these big class transformations that you see on Instagram, but finding little ways to kind of get the spark in the classroom. And I think as someone that wanted that kind of spark, and I was like, how do you do it? That gave me a lot of practical tips on how to make class a little more engaging.
Well, I can't wait to see that. That sounds
That's a good
really
one.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on the math side, though, my school's doing a book study on this book right now. I read it like 5 years ago, and it's, I think, more math oriented. However, the English teachers at our school have seen the math teachers doing it and are talking to each other and are like, oh, we want to start doing that. So they have our fourth grade ELA teachers here have started implementing this, but building thinking classrooms. I think that was a goal of mine, is I want kids to think and talk and converse, and I don't necessarily know how to put the systems in place to make that happen, to give them the ability to like think through things in not such a like standard algorithm way, but like approach it from any way. That book really helped me.
By Peter Lillendahl. He was all over NCTM and NCSM this past couple
neat.
weeks ago. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome to hear. And then the last thing was just, if anyone's looking for a quick task, I wanted to plug my favorite quick task a teacher could do with their students, but it's called the 5 5s. And it's a math task, but anybody can do it because it's just add, subtract, multiply, and divide. But that task, and it's not by anybody, it's been around since like the 1800s, but it's just kids finding any way to create the numbers 1 through 20 using 5 5s. And so it just gets them thinking a lot. Really good one.
All right.
Great.
Sweet. Excellent. I love it. All right. I think that's about it for us. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us. This was fantastic. And not just because you're a math teacher.
It applies everywhere.
That's right.
Great in general.
That's right. All right.
And-
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, thanks so much, Cassandra, for coming. And also thanks to all of our viewers for joining us. Remember, the road to better teaching goes on forever and the joy of learning never ends. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Rate and review the podcast. It really helps others find these stories, and share it with a colleague or friend who's on their own journey in education.
You can find today's show notes, all the links that we just mentioned there, and at roadtobetterteaching.com. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to each of you traveling this journey of becoming and growing as an educator. The world is a better place because you are sharing the gifts you've been given to teach others.
The Road to Better Teaching is an Amazon Planet production.